We're committed to being a church for people who don't go to church. And for us, so much of that involves removing obstacles or removing things that get in the way of people attending church and ultimately engaging in our community. And so that could be simple things like sometimes church or spiritual language can be an obstacle for someone who's new to church, and so we try to speak simply. Sometimes the way you dress is an obstacle for people who are thinking about attending church, and so we dress very casually, and so we do things to that end. Well, if you've been with us for a little while, you probably know that our property, or the layout of our property in its current state, is a little bit of an obstacle for people who are attending our church and also for people who are considering attending our church. Right now, it's dangerous. There are potholes everywhere. There's some blind corners. We've actually had people get injured in our parking lot. It's inefficient. We're cramming cars into the lot, and it's also inaccessible. If you're someone who's bound to a wheelchair, you have no way of getting downstairs, and currently the handicap ramp that we have out front isn't up to code. And so there are a lot of problems right now with the layout of our property. Well, about 2 years ago, we started working on removing this obstacle. We met with some architects, some volunteers from our team. We even spoke with the village planning board, and we came up with a plan. The hope is that we'll take this obstacle and turn it into an asset. We want the layout of our property to be safe, efficient, and accessible. And so I'm excited to announce that the plans have been approved and the work has begun. Here's a look at what you can expect over the next few months. If you've been around after a rainstorm, you know that when the water lands in the parking lot, it stays in the parking lot until it evaporates. And so we have these nice pools around these gigantic potholes, or the water just flows into the yard of one of our neighbors. And so to start this project, we're installing some legitimate drains into the parking lot, which is a huge expense, but it brings our parking lot up to code and gives the water a place to go. Along with that, if you pull onto our property from Montauk Highway, instead of driving straight to the back of the building where you have to go around that blind corner, you can now pull in front of the building where you can drop people off before you head around back, where you'll see our new parking layout. This layout is code compliant and maximizes capacity in the back of the building. The plan also includes sidewalks all around the building, which not only give you a safe place to walk, but they'll lead you to one of 2 of our handicap accessible entrances. So in the front, we'll have a ramp, but that ramp will now be code compliant. And in the back, we'll also have a handicap accessible entrance, which is gonna require us to dig underground, but we'll have a second entrance, which is right next to our main entrance. And so now both our main level and our lower level, which is where our kids programs and cafe are, all of it will be handicap accessible. The hope is that when all of this is done, our property will be safe, efficient, and code compliant. Now, the unfortunate reality of this project is that in order to maximize capacity while keeping our spots and aisles code compliant, we had to remove some trees from the property. And so in order to try and make up for that a little bit, we've already funded the planting of 1,000 trees with an organization called Team Trees. And in addition to that, we're gonna be working with the Babylon Beautification Society to plant more trees specifically in this village in the spring when they do their annual plantings. And so while none of us were happy about the removal of the trees, the hope is that our property will now be safe, efficient, and handicap accessible in our effort to make this a church for people who don't go to church. And so if that's you, if you consider yourself someone who doesn't go to church, or you're not a church person, or you're not sure about God, or you're not sure about us, well, we're excited to have you here at the church, and ultimately, we're making this lot and these changes to the property for you. And so for you, this is the end of the video. But if you do consider Community Church to be your church home, and if you are someone who follows Jesus, and if you are on board with our mission to change the way people think about God and to be a church for people who don't go to church, well then, I'm not done yet. Our church has a history of tackling what seem to be insurmountable obstacles, huge challenges. It's part of our DNA at this point. And now here we have this enormous challenge before us. We were hoping that this parking lot was going to be a quick fix that happened in a few months, but like I said, it ended up taking a few years, and it's gotten pretty expensive. We're required to put in drainage, which is a huge expense. We have to dig to get that ramp into the entrance of the lower level, and the expenses pile up pretty quickly. And so right now we're looking at a project that's going to take about 4 months and cost just under $1 million. Yeah, I had that same feeling the first time I heard how much it was going to cost, but I've been reminded that God has come through for us over and over again, and we're confident that He's going to. In fact, we've already seen God come through for us in some pretty miraculous ways. All of the architecture work has been done for us on a volunteer basis. And that's not a little bit. That's been happening over the course of 2 years, which is saving us a lot of money. Not only that, but we've had one family commit to paying for half of the parking lot. That's $500,000. But there is this $500,000 lump that we've needed to find. And fortunately, there's an organization called Christian Financial Services that has agreed to loan us that money. And so the great news is that the parking lot is gonna happen no matter what. We have the funds to pull this thing off. But the reality is that the more debt we have, the less ministry we can do. And so we want to start off by taking a huge chunk out of this debt. Our goal is to raise $100,000 by the end of the summer, and then prioritize that remaining $400,000 and chip away at that as fast as we can. But we see this as an opportunity that our community can come together once again and tackle this enormous challenge that we have before us. And so if you've been with us for a little while, hopefully you know by now that we're super intentional with the way we talk about money. We never want people to give from a place of guilt or pressure, but we did want to give you an opportunity to partner with us to try to help us reach that goal of $100,000 by the end of the summer. And if you'd like to, you can do that by going to communitychurch.net/give, or you can give on the app, or you can scan the little QR code at the bottom of the screen here, and it'll take you to that page. And you can know that anything that you give between now and the end of the summer will go toward that goal of reaching $100,000. And so that's the project, that's the plan, and we're excited about it. We're excited about the property, we're excited that we get to do this together as a community, and we're excited to see all that God does through the changes here to the property. And so thank you for being part of this community, for investing in this community, for listening to this video, and would you be patient with us as we go through the craziness here on the property over these next few months as we take one step closer in this journey, in this story, to be a church for people who don't go to church.